Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And well, though it's not exactly talking TNA shenanigans, it is relating to TNA. And I've said this a few times here where I've kind of said, like, people who have gone to WWE, it is their prerogative to go to WWE, and I do wish people wouldn't always think, oh well, people are going to WWE, that's the ultimate goal for everyone, or whatever, or that's where everyone will ultimately end up, or one of these days we'll see these guys in WWE full time and all this sort of thing. That sort of perspective. I don't like that sort of perspective. And I also think that talent, or the wrestlers, or, whoever's involved in this sport, the announcers, the announcers, the interviewers, everyone that's involved in this thing, they need to realize that, not to say again, there's MLW, there's all these, indie promotions. There's a few sort of better indie promotions going around and whatnot, and that sort of thing. But your mainstay wrestling companies, and I think actually like New Japan, I don't know whether they have a TV show, a proper TV show that's going on every single week, or is it just still they're just doing highlights from their pay-per-view, which is we've talked about that so much that it's ridiculous. But it's these sorts of things, is that still what they're doing? I don't know. But you've got these other places that you can go and work and still make a decent living, or decent aspect of professional wrestling. Look at Matt Cardona. He's out there and he's doing some amazing work. He's wrestling with a whole bunch of the independents, and he's remained a independent contractor. Yes, he's accepted dates from AEW and TNA, and I think also NWA and a few other places. I don't know whether he's been to New Japan or not. I'm not too sure. But again, that's the sort of thing. He's sort of just accepted dates from people, and he said, oh, well, I'll come in for a few weeks or maybe a few months or something like that, or whatever else it is, but I'm not going to stay long term. And, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. And at the end of the day, if people want to go to WWE, they can go to WWE. I just want to make a quick, little statement to say, hey, you don't have to do that. You've got all of these options, especially right now, and the independent scene is becoming more and more of a thing that you can actually legitimately do. Long term, yes, if you want to go to WWE, as I said, you can go there, but you need to look, or AEW, or wherever it is, TNA, whoever, whatever. But you need to look at the roster. You need, this is the thing that I was saying when I was saying, why would, I understand, from the money perspective, why some of these people, Malachi Black and Rusev and these other people are probably going to WWE. But honestly, if you look at the roster of WWE, they can barely fit the people that they've got. And they've got an absolutely bloated roster. And they don't use half of the people that they've got. And you think you're going to be any different? You need to take that perspective into account. You need to realize, what am I going to do over there? How am I going to go over there? How am I going to set myself apart? How am I going to be featured? Maybe you're Ethan Page, or what's his name? I'm trying to think of the other person, but Ricky Saints or Ricky Starks now. Oh, Ricky Starks before, whatever. What was his name before? The guy that Cody was feuding with back in AEW. What was his name? I can't remember his name. Sean Spears. Anyway, that guy. I can't remember if he's changed his name or whatever else is going on. I don't know. I don't really care that much. But again, you look at those guys that have come over, and it is amazing that they have been able to, find some space for you, but eventually it's diminishing returns type thing. The main roster has got so many people on it, and like both rosters, and you've got so many people in NXT. Yes, a lot of the people that are in NXT are like, besides Ethan Page and like a couple other people that are like actually high profile, a lot of them are a lot lower profile, no matter what they've kind of done. Like, who was it that Obafemi lost the title to? I can't remember who it was. The North American title. I can't remember. It was like really silly. I think they should have just like, they should have made him lose it in a different way. They should have made him lose it in like a ladder match or some sort of 6-man match or something like that, because it was like, it's, if you want him to be the world champion, which is what you wanted to do, you got to like get the belt off of him and then get him to start challenging for the world title. But now you've got this person, or you had this person that was on the roster that beat him. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, he's meant to be the guy that's basically unbeatable. You should have had him be beat. Like, you should have had him, lose the title somehow in a ladder match or something like that, and then, he gets like attacked by the world champion, or he runs into the world champion at some point or something like that, and then goes along and goes, well, I'm going to get that prize now next, bro, or whatever, that sort of thing. Or, like, I don't know, that sort of thing. Or if the world champion could have cut a promo on him and saying, haha, I'm better than Oba because I actually retained my title, ha ha ha, whatever it is, that sort of thing. And then you can go from there, being like Oba squaring up to him and be like, you better prove that, man, like, I will challenge you in a match for the title, like, whatever, that type of thing. But again, like, looking at saying, okay, if I went to WWE or AEW, either of those companies right now, both of those companies are absolutely stacked, even though they're like, AEW's just lost a couple of people, or not released some people, or let them out of their deals early, or whatever else you want to say. Same with Paige and a few other people, or Soraya, whatever. There's a few people that are there that are just like, what are they doing? Who knows? Because again, they're not on TV in any kind of frequency, and like, they've just been forgotten about, or whatever else. Maybe some of them are injured or whatever else it is. Like, with a lot of the TNA wrestlers, like, sometimes I do feel like, somebody pointed this out, I think about this week, that there wasn't a women's match this week. And it is like, well, I was thinking about, well, what are they going to do with the women upcoming with Unbreakable and then Rebellion, because you're kind of setting up this 4-way like tag team match, or this like 8 women tag team match. Is it 8? 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, 8. So yeah, 4 teams all going against each other effectively. I don't I don't really know where, like, I don't really think that they're gonna do that, like, until Rebellion. So that's probably why they're trying to build it to then, but it's sort of like a last minute kind of thing in many ways. It's obviously, again, it's not the main attraction or one of the big attractions or whatever else it is. But again, like, why, like, you're bringing, like, again, this is another reason why TNA can bring in so many people from WWE that are kind of like, well, what are we doing with these girls, or what are we doing with these guys, or what are we doing with these people? We're not really doing anything with these people, and, well, we don't really have the patience or the time or whatever else it is, or the enough ability to get to everyone. And that's fine, and I understand that, but that's why you should say, hey, why are we bringing in this person and that person and this person and that person if we already cannot use all the people that we've got? It's like, or we can't even use the people that we've got properly. Like, obviously you're going to have those guys that aren't used quote unquote properly, because you've got to have other bigger stars. You've got to have your mid card fodder guys that are there to put other guys over. You've got to have your upper card guys that are there to put other guys over. You've got to have your lower card guys that are there to put guys over. You've got to have your jobbers that are there to put guys over. You've got to have a few people that are on every run that are effectively, yeah, sure, like you might be this time around or next time around or whatever it is, you might be like 4 losses to 3 or something, to 3 wins, whereas you might next time be 6 losses to 1 win or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes they'll be a little bit lower in the pecking order, and sometimes they'll be a bit higher in the pecking order. It'll be one of those things where it's like, okay, now we need another team, another higher up team to kind of get up against the tag team champions. You guys haven't had a go yet, so, we'll give you a couple of wins and build you up to having a feud with the champions or whatever else it is, that sort of thing. That's the sort of way some of these things work. You have your other teams sort of job out to your other teams so that you can push them up the card and say, okay, well, now they're in for a tag team title shot, and then we'll see what we do from there, or whatever else it is, like or whoever it is. Same thing with the singles divisions. You slowly start pushing people up and, getting them wins against some of the other people so that you have a new contender for whoever is the champion, and then you go from there. You go back to square one. Okay, cool. Who hasn't this person beat that's still in that upper, like, echelon of our, like, semi-main eventers or, jobbers to the ultimate stars or whatever you want to say, type thing, like, because everyone at the end of the day is a jobber, like, at the end of the day, in some way, because you're going to job to somebody. Like, in some ways you're always going to lose, you're never going to always win. That doesn't work. Like, it's one of those things. And again, like, you get to the point where, okay, well, the world champions or whatever it is, or the world champion has to job to somebody because, well, we need a new person in that role, and we need to freshen things up, and it's probably the right time to do that, and kind of do something else, and really do this other thing or do that or whatever else it is or whatnot. So it's one of those things that you've got to be keeping your eye on and saying, okay, well, where is this going, why are we doing that, type thing. And the same thing, like, if you're looking at it from the outside and looking in and seeing, hey, Tony Khan's got all these guys, yeah, he's paying them big money, and hey, if you want to sit home, get paid some big money, or maybe you'll get used, who knows, if you get lucky, but then you might fall out of favor or whatever else it is, you never know. But that's the same with anywhere, I get that. But again, especially when the rosters are super, super, like, packed in, and you've got everyone kind of there, and it's like, man, they're having trouble filling, like, not filling, but they're having trouble, like, fulfilling, like, working with everyone that they've got under contract. So what's going to make me different? Like, if I go to WWE, how am I gonna go there? Like, and it's fine to be like, well, that's not my main, concern about how I'm going to be used. But, like, if you're not concerned in some way about how you're going to be used, like, if you're like happy to go there and be a jobber, that's cool. That's whatever for you. But, like, if you're, like, never used, basically, or almost never used, and you're never really given any stories to work with, it's like, well, what's this? Like, especially when you're a jobber and you haven't really got a good story to work with or something like that, or you're sort of jobbing and you haven't got anything to kind of work with, it's kind of like, well, what are you doing? Like, at least if you've got a story of like, oh, we always lose, and what do we have to do to, turn our fates around, or whatever else it is, and we've got to start winning, and wins and losses have to matter, like, that's the same like what we were saying. I was sort of saying before with the whole, faction with the system. It's like, yeah, address it, bring it up, like, because the fans know this sort of stuff and they can see through it, obviously. But again, it's like when you are sitting to watch wrestling, there is that level of like, we are trying or wanting to suspend our disbelief. That's what everyone does when they watch a movie or watches a play or anything. You're suspending your disbelief in some ways, in some forms, in some fashions, to be entertained by whatever it is that you're watching. You know it's not real, but you get lost in the world building and whatever else it is of, that, story. This is the story. If it's more realistic, it is easier. Like, the more fantasy and more sci-fi ones are harder, or more horror or whatever are kind of harder to like suspend your disbelief. But if it's really good and sort of has some level of sort of realism to it, you can also lose yourself in that, or you can lose yourself in the ultimate like fantasy like motif of it. Like, so you can go further down into the fantasy sort of stuff, and it's just like, oh cool, this is like a dream or something, like that sort of thing. So you can kind of, get into it in that way. It's not like meant to be super realistic. This is sort of meant to be a dream or whatever else it is, or it's meant to be, more fun and more, I don't know how to sort of explain it, but you know what I mean. Like, it's meant to be light-hearted or even dark-hearted. I don't know whether that's actually a term or whatever, but you know what I mean. It's meant to have that other element. This is just this completely unrealistic, but everything in there is inherent and sticks to the bit, so to speak. You know what I mean? So that's, it all follows its own logic. Everything is logical in that world, and it follows rules or whatever else it is. So again, you feel like you have that connection to something and somebody or somewhere or whatever it is, and you're kind of, going through that journey to see, what it is. Anyway, again, like, you cannot be sitting there and saying, oh well, I'll be different. You might be. Like, if you could be very lucky, and there's some people that do get very lucky. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at it, you should be looking at it and saying, let's take, just a second or whatever else it is, or have a second thought. And especially when you're negotiating, saying these sorts of things in negotiation and saying, hey, what, like Matt Cardona kind of has done, you know what? Let's sign a short-term, if like, not exactly, but let's sign a short-term deal. Like, in maybe a few months, we'll sign another short-term deal, or we'll just have a handshake agreement. This is what I want for however many weeks or however many months work. And if you really want me here and you actually treat me well, we'll keep this up, like, but if you don't want me here and you don't want to use me and that sort of thing, then, well, I'm just going to move on to the next thing or whatever else it is, or I'm only here for this, or I'm only here for that, whatever else it is. It's like, I'm here for a pay-per-view, the lead up to the pay-per-view, whatever else it is. That's what I'm here for. So, whatever. I don't really care. The rest is, like, as long as you're treating me well or whatever else it is and whatnot, I haven't got any problems in the locker room or whatever else it is. It's all cool and it's all fine and whatever else it is. So, again, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm just at that place for people. Like, I don't want to see these guys or gals or whoever it is going to WWE or AEW or wherever and being like, oh man, this was a waste of my fucking time. Like, that's what I feel like for a lot of people. Even though Aleister Black's been on TV a fair bit up until whenever he left, he could have been like a major deal over there. Absolutely a major deal over there. Like, he could have been world champion. Like, at least once, he could have been world champion over there. And they could have, sort of stuck that in WWE's face and said, hey, we took your guy and we made him like our guy. We put our stamp on him. And that, like, the only, besides like Jericho and like, what's his name? Swerve Strickland and Moxley, like, those are the guys that they've, and yeah, like a few other guys here and there, but like actually put the title on. Like, I guess Punk, but like Punk's never going to lose that aura that he kind of had. So, and I don't know whether you can ever consider him one thing or another thing or whatever else it is, or a WWE guy or whatever, but that's what he's most known for, so it's like hard to kind of get rid of that in some ways. Once you've been to the biggest place and been a big thing there, you're automatically like more associated with that than almost anything else, even though he was huge in Ring of Honor and whatnot. But yeah, no, like, again, like, especially like big stars, like, I think they can more easily get, I sort of talked about this before, sort of a little bit, is that when you're bringing in a major star or whatever, an icon, a legend, whatever, they have that status, and oh man, how much am I paying, Mercedes Moné, or how much am I paying Sting, or how much am I paying this person? I'm paying them some major, major, major money. Like, and what am I going to do with them? Nothing. I'm going to stick them on our D show, and we're not going to give them, like, that would be stupid. Like, if we're not going to give them stories, we're not going to give them many wins or whatever else it is. And this is what they did with Saraya. Like, they just were like, oh yeah, you're here, that's cool, bye, and then suddenly they turned around and went, oh yeah, we've got a match happening in England, so we're going to crown you champion. And then they took the belt right off her like a week after that, and they were like, wasn't that fun? And then like moved right back to basically never using her. So it was like, what the heck? Like, that was crazy, because again, she was like one of their major acquisitions, and it's like, dude, what the heck? Same with like Miro, he should have been like a major acquisition, and he would have been on a fairly decent contract from just like assuming, but like, yeah, you're just like, oh, okay, we don't really know what to do with this guy very much. Then you had one good thing for him, like that whole Redeemer sort of stuff that, I don't pay that much attention to AEW, but I'm just saying, like, again, like from what I've heard, people liked what he did there, and that was actually kind of working, and, and then it's like, oh, okay, then you kind of drop the ball or whatever. And yes, he got injured or whatever else it is, and that sort of stuff, but you could have brought him back in and started again and said, okay, let's, put you with somebody else, or let's give you a big feud with this person, and at the end of it, in 6 months or 8 months or whatever it is, you're going to put that person over, or whatever it is, that kind of thing. Just to try to make this guy, hopefully, and if it doesn't work, well, we're gonna go back on that, and we want it to work, but that's what you should have done with almost everyone, and I hope that's what they're doing with, like, especially like some of the guys that are there, but you give them, like I said before, like you give them something big kind of initially to sort of establish them and say this person is, worth, seeing every single week. This person's going to make a big impact, very soon and whatnot. So this person needs to be taken seriously. Then you give them like a major title run. Now that doesn't have to be the world title, but like obviously being the world title, it's the most important thing in the company. So it's like, well, that bears the most like significance and weight and whatever else it is. And whoever like wins that belt off of you is obviously, catapulted way up. So just doing that and saying, okay, we're going to put the belt on you and then we're going to, give you a run for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, or maybe a year or whatever it is. And then, we're going to see where we're kind of at and we're going to see who we want to put over you. And hopefully we've made like Ricky Saints or whoever it is, a brand new star of our own making. And, now we're off to the races with MJF or whatever else it is, or whoever else it is. And it's like, okay, same thing for the women's division. I think like putting the belt on Saraya was kind of a good idea. Just the execution of it was piss poor and terrible. They were like, suddenly she's in this 4-way match. Oh, and suddenly she's the champion without like really any build up. And she was meant to be a heel before that. And it was like, wait a minute, now we're going to give her this big home field babyface moment. Like, what? Okay, cool. And then like a few weeks later, you're going to just take the belt off her again. So it's like, well, why'd you do that? Like, if you're going to do that, like at least like make it like something that she has to chase back down, or she has to, get a revenge or try to get a revenge, but she can't. And in the process of doing that, you've made like whoever it is, I don't know, I don't remember who pinned her or whatever else it was, that circumstances at that time, whoever beat her is now like over or gotten more over because they beat Saraya, one of the biggest names, that you had at the time. And still, yes, you had other people coming in. You had Mercedes Moné and some other people coming in around that time and whatnot, I think, or just a bit after that or whatever it was. But again, it's like, well, still, she's still here and still can be useful, and we can still give this other person, whoever it is, or whatever else it is, this little feud with this person for a few months or whatever else it is, and we're going to keep putting this, new girl over to make her, like, our new girl. Like, I think Tony Storm, Timeless Tony Storm, that's like the best thing that they have in their women division. And I don't want to keep talking about AEW or whatnot. But again, like, if you're looking at AEW and you're saying, okay, well, if I'm going into that women's division or whatever it is, same thing for the men's division. But if you're going into that division, like, Tony Storm is the top person in that division. So, like, that's who I've got to work to get to, like, realistically. And she's, like, been, like, the best thing that they've once she transitioned into Timeless Tony Storm and did everything that she's been doing with that, it's been, like, the best thing that they've been doing. Even though they've botched it here and there and done really silly things with it here and there and whatnot. But still, it's like, that's still... that gimmick, and or at least her as well, are kind of like something the fans want to see every single week. And like, they botched, who was it, Mariah May or whatever it was, that took the title off Tony. It was like, oh, I won the title, oh look, I lost the title, like a few months later or whatever it was. It wasn't like months and months and months and months and months, like 6, 7, 8 months, a year later or whatever it was. It was like maybe a month or two later or something like that. It's basically a transitional championship run. Now, you can give people those again, but you shouldn't do that too much, because it's like, well, now you just cut her legs out from under her. You just made her look like a chump And it's like, well, are people ever going to buy her again? Like, unless you make her a, babyface, and probably people don't want to see that right now, you know? So you've sort of shot her in the foot from like being able to do anything. So who's, Tony going to feud with next? Type thing. You've always got to, and that's the thing, you've got to bring in new girls every now and again as well, because you can't just keep going, well, we've got the same division that we've always had, because some people are going to, move on, like Soraya has, or whoever, like Jordan Grace has, and TNA's had to do the same thing of saying, okay, well, we don't have Jordan anymore, and now we've got to orient our whole division and kind of start pushing some other people and start giving other people other things to do and push them up. Like, we've got to make more people in this division, and that's going to take time. And again, like, they've got a whole bunch of people that are like injured and whatnot. So again, they're kind of trying to see if they can get some of these people back from injury or whatever else it is or whatnot. And maybe maybe you can't. I don't know. And it's crazy. So I hope that some people can sort of come back. We've been saying sort of some things about some of the people that are not there or whatever else it is. But again, like, bringing, like, not to say that the Tessa thing is good or bad or whatever, but bringing in somebody of that caliber is something that actually really helped. And same thing with kind of Li Ling Li. Bringing somebody of that caliber in and giving them something like big to do for 6 months or whatever it is, 8 months or whatever it is really good, because now you're not only giving Tessa something to do, you're giving Masha Slamovich a new opponent, new big opponent, So now you've got this thing for the whole division, and you've got time to try to build up some of the other heels or build up some of the other baby faces, or see who kind of connects or whatever else it is, and that sort of thing, so that you can kind of go, okay, let's go down this road, let's go down that road, let's see how this person does or whatever else it is. Because it's not just saying, let's make this person job out or whatever else it is, or let's just keep pushing this person to win. You're kind of going, okay, how well did the crowd react to this person or that person or whatever else it is? And sometimes it's really tough, because again, like with the Rascals versus the Hardys, no one's getting cheered basically against the Hardys. I think they got, like, the Rascals got a few little cheers and that there, but realistically they got mostly booed, because it's the Hardys and no one can go up against the Hardys without being booed. It's just like, it shouldn't have happened really. In some ways it's a cool little match and whatnot in some ways, but again, it's sort of like, well, I think you need to realize, like, almost like Axiom and Fraser did, that they were kind of in a heel role and sort of started to act a little bit more heelish and start cutting more heelish promos and that sort of thing, because they were like, well, we're going to get booed against you guys anyway, so we can't, we can't go into this program, we can't do this if we're going to just get booed. We might as well try to get the boos so that it works a little bit better, So, and that was because of injuries as well. But again, that's just like, some things are like, well, maybe you should have pushed, like, I don't know, some of the other heel teams that you kind of had. You had Sinner and Saint there that were doing basically nothing. You had the Good Hands, now the Great Hands, they're kind of doing nothing. And yes, they're both of those, well, at least the Good Hands or Great Hands were kind of a jobber team. Like, at least like Sinner and Saint, or now the Northern Army, whatever. You could have like had something there with the Northern Army, I guess. like make, you know, one of EY's missions to get those guys to win the tag team championships. You know, have him be their manager effectively, being on the outside, you know, helping them win matches and whatnot along the way. You know, it should be more about them than it should be about EY. Like, EY should play a role and a part in it. I love the feud that they have with him and Steve Macklin, though, but again, it's sort of like, you know, this really doesn't involve these guys. They're just kind of his lapdogs, and that's kind of a role to have, but they should be kind of doing their own thing, and they should be, like, being pushed to being, like, something in that tag team. But again, yeah, if you look at a wrestling company like TNA, you look at it and it is pretty stacked, but you look at the roster and it's actually pretty thin, and it is getting thinner and thinner and thinner in many ways. And it is like, well, everyone's kind of wrestled everyone for the most part. So it is like, well, you know, if I go to TNA, I'm going to have, like, it doesn't matter if you're a tag team or you're a singles guy. But if you look at, like, going there and saying, oh, yeah, maybe, like, Hammerstone and a few other people kind of here and there have kind of slipped through the cracks or whatever else it is. But then again, so have some of those people gotten injured or whatever else it is. So, like, can't do much there as well. But again, they're trying as their best they can to try to give everyone something to kind of do. But hey, like, if I go there, no matter what, have I wrestled any of these guys? Maybe I have wrestled some of these guys, but have I wrestled any of those guys in a more prominent position, like on TV or whatever else it is, or in front of a truly national and international audience? Probably not. Like Mace Warner and Callahan, I heard that they've wrestled like a bunch of times on the indies, like mostly in Callahan's promotion. I think it's in Ohio, but I can't remember what it's. I think it's called Ohio Wrestling or something like that. Anyway, whatever. I don't care enough. But anyway, I almost think it's Border City Wrestling. Actually, maybe it is. I'm not too sure. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But yeah, like apparently they've wrestled each other like a bunch of times. So it's like, well, yeah, cool, but like only those people that are probably local to that area or to the places that they've wrestled in, and maybe a few other people here and there have seen them, like maybe on pay-per-view or whatever. But those shows are still small pay-per-views. They don't get very many people to view their pay-per-views. And some people say, oh, TNA, you know, they only got 500,000 buyers or something, or whatever, you know, whatever it was, or whatnot, here or there, whatever it was. You know, like, dude, 500,000 buys, like some of these places would kill to get 500,000 buys or whatever it is. You know, like what I mean? Like that's like huge for like anywhere like GCW or whatever it is. You know, I think that was actually one of their best record pay-per-views actually, but whatever. Still, it's like, you know, and I think they were down 500 buys or 500,000 buys or something, or whatever it was at some point there too, but they still got like 200 buys or 200,000 buys or something like that. So it's like, you know, that's still like way more than a lot of these other places will probably ever get. And I might be wrong on those numbers, but like, you know what I mean? Like they're getting way more buys than any of these other indie promotions. You know, globally and whatnot, because they're actually like a properly global thing that you can easily get your hands on. And even though people like, you know, you can't easily watch it on TV, you can easily watch it like if you've got smart TV or whatever it is, but you can't easily watch it just to, you know, on their actual channel, which is why you need the app or you need it, you know, on a streaming service or whatever else it is. But yeah, still. But that's what I would suggest to people, you know, like don't like don't discourage yourself from going there, to going to somewhere, and don't disbelieve in yourself, obviously. But again, just like assessing, like just assess. Stand back for a second and assess. Yes, I could be getting all this money, but where will I fit in? I've got to, have a role. And like Tony Storm, she was in AEW for I don't know how long, like a couple of years before she really like took off and did the timeless Tony Storm thing. Um, but yeah, like once she did that, she was like on fire, and she like shot up, and she's like the biggest thing in the division. Like, like it's like overnight success, like that took 15 years or whatever it is, or 10 years or whatever it is. I don't know how long she's been wrestling for, but yeah, that sort of thing. It's the same thing with Joe Hendry. He's been around for a long time, and, kind of suddenly overnight, bam, like suddenly everyone saw it, and it was like, holy shit, this guy, we believe, and he suddenly got super over, So, yeah, and that's great, because it is one of those things that, people, go, okay, let's see what we've got, let's see where this goes, and yeah, like I think opportunity, like true opportunity, is the best thing that any wrestler can be given. That's my perspective. If you are given an opportunity to perform, look at Maggie May, or what's her name? That's what I think her name is, something like that. She just got signed recently, and she's had a couple matches recently on Explosion, against Danny Luna and against Savannah Evans recently. And it looks like she might be going into the Elegance team, or the Elegance brand, or whatever else, the faction, I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting to add another member, because then you can have Heather and Maggie be the tag team people, and then you can have Ash kind of branch out and kind of be the single star. Like, that would actually be really good, because you need somebody, or you need more opponents for Marsha, or even so, like, you need more opponents for more of the other baby faces that are on the roster, and you need really good heels, and Ash is a really good heel, and like they can be a really good solid, tag team. Maggie and Heather, they can be a really solid tag team for a while, and they can, do some stuff together and whatnot, and maybe like wrestle for the belts and wrestle on and off and whatever else, and be in that division for a while. And she might break out as a star soon, or at some point later on down the road as a single star. I think that she's got a lot of potential behind her. But again, like just saying that that's her role for now, that's okay, because like Ash is like that next level kind of person right now that, the division sort of needs, or you need other people to be able to have feuds with these other people, and she can't be like locked up in a tag team. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, now we've got to, have half of the tag team lose to a singles person and then go back to the tag team division. It's a real big, like, step down or step away or whatever else it is to kind of do something, like that. If at least you give them a big loss and then you give them something else to work with in a singles role, it's like, well, we'll give you something else to kind of work with. And again, like, I still think like either another singles division or just a, straight up like pathway to being like the Knockouts champion, stories where people are working together in some cases or whatever else it is. And some people having to say, hey, Danny, I respect you, or hey, Jody, I respect you. And, I'm really having trouble with these, this Heather and Ash by Elegance and this Maggie girl that, they've gotten as their lackey of late. Would you mind tagging with me and blah, 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 so that we can take them down and I can get back to my business and you get back to your business or whatever it is. and we'll watch each other's back for a bit and whatever else it is. So yeah, that sort of thing. That's how it should work, I think. But again, that's just my opinion. But again, like, you have so many opportunities in TNA. There's so many opportunities, or at least there, and at least there should be, because again, you don't have as many people to kind of compete with. Yes, that is bad in some ways, because it's like, the more competition there is, the better the kind of competition kind of is. Like, if you have a roster of like 3 people, whatever it is, especially like your sort of main eventers, it's like, well, that's not many. And then you've got your John Cena at the top, your one top guy, your proper top guy, you know, or your proper top 2 guys, whatever it is. It's like, okay, those are the top 2 guys. Like, it's either going to be one of them holding that belt, you know, probably. And then some of the other people that are there are going to be feuding with them over that belt, you know, or whatever else it is, and being in that big position. You know, if you're new, you might not get to that position like for 6 months, a year, whatever else it is. You wouldn't know. But again, saying that, hey, you know, at least I'm getting something, you know, where am I going to start? I've got to start somewhere, not literally at the bottom, because you expect somewhat to be brought in, somewhat, you know, and said, okay, we'll give you somebody somewhat in the middle or somewhere upper to kind of work with, and then get you established, like Mace Warner kind of is. He's getting somebody like Callahan. He wasn't doing too much before, but he's always got that high level kind of resume or kind of perspective of a lot of people. So a lot of people sort of see him in that sort of semi-main event sort of level. So, you know, giving him that push, you know, and saying, hey, we can bring in somebody that probably, you know, 9 people and a dog have heard about, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? But we can bring this guy in and we can make him a big time star, a big national and international star. And even if he says, oh, in 6 months or in a year or whatever else it is, hey, I just got an offer from WWE or just got an offer from AEW, and my contract's up, basically, and, well, I want to pursue this and see where this goes. So thank you so much for all you've done for me, but no, I'm going to take this deal because it's just too good to pass up. I understand that when it's like, look at all this money that I'm going to be making, you know, but you need to really think, why am I going to AEW? Why am I going to WWE? Where am I going to fit in? What am I going to do? Not just, oh yeah, I'll go and hopefully everything works out or whatever else it is. The cream will rise to the top or whatever. Yes, you've got to believe in yourself and you've got to go for things at a certain point, but you've got to realize, hey, you know, maybe I just sign for a few weeks, or we're just sort of on a tentative deal for now, and we'll see where we're at in a few months or whatever else it is. And maybe they'll bring me in strong and whatever else it is. I don't know. But again, it's like, well, what do I think I should do at, you know, one of the biggest shows of the year, like SummerSlam or whatever, WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble or whatever else it is. Like, it does depend when you're coming in. But again, it's like, you know, hopefully I'm going to come in at a certain point and then be like catapulted into something, you know, big, and then, you know, move on from there. So, but anyway, guys, yeah, you guys get this. I know, but like, I'm just sort of going through this conversation of like thinking it through and sort of, you know, going for those people that kind of don't get this or haven't really thought about it or whatnot. So again, we've got to go through these hoops and whatnot, and then we've got to make content sometimes, because I do like to talk, as you might want to see here, about wrestling. So because I'm obsessed, so Yeah, but that is what it is, guys. Hope you have enjoyed this one, and hope you will join me again in another one.